All right, we're looking into the Fred Hampton story. Now I'm gonna go show it to y'all right here from Bing. This is the story of African American activist Frederick Allen Hampton Sr. This man was an American activist and revolutionary communist. He came to prominence in his late teens and early 20s in Chicago as a deputy chairman of the National Black Panther Party and chair of the Illinois chapter. The Illinois chapter. He founded the anti-racist, anti-classist Rainbow Coalition, a prominent multicultural political organization that initially included the Black Panthers, Young Patriots, which have organized the Poor Whites, and the Young Guards, which have been organized as Puerto Ricans. That's why I said Puerto Ricans. And an alliance among major Chicago street gangs, yes, major Chicago street gangs to help them end infighting and work for the social change. He professed to be a Marxist Leninist, that's the word, a Marxist Leninist. Hampton considered fascism the greatest threat, saying that nothing is more important than stopping fascism because fascism fascism will stop us all. In the late 1960s, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, had identified Hampton as a radical threat. It tried to subvert his activities in Chicago by sowing disinformation among the black progressive groups and placing a counterintelligence operative in the local Panthers organization. But in December of 1969, Hampton was drugged, then shot and killed in his bed during a pre-dawn raid at his Chicago apartment by a tactical unit of the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, who received aid from from the Chicago Police Department, and the FBI leading up to the attack. Law enforcement sprayed more than 100 gunshots throughout the apartment. 100 the occupants have fired once. During the raid, another Panther who goes by the name of Mark Clark was also killed, and several others who were seriously wounded. That's the word, wounded. In January of 1970, the Cook County coroner held an inquest. The coroner's jury concluded that Hampton's and Clark's deaths were justifiable. What's the word? Justifiable homicides. Oh, this is bad. But a civil lawsuit for a wrongful, yes, word, a civil wrongsuit. That's what we have there. Let me go. I got all messed up now. Let me go read this. Right. A civil lawsuit for the wrongful death was later filed on the behalf of the survivors and the relatives of Hampton and Clark. It was resolved. It was resolved in 1982 by a settlement of $1.85 million, an equivalent to $6.3 million in in a year ago, in over a year ago, last year. The United States federal government, Cook County, and the city of Chicago each paid one third to a group of nine plaintiffs, given revelations about the COINTELPRO. That means counterintelligence program. That's a combination of COINTELPRO. So program and the documents have been associated with the killings. Many scholars now consider Hampton's death at the age of 21 a deliberate assassination at the FBI's initiative. I'm about to start this stream right off, folks. Frederick Allen Hampton Sr. was born on August the 30th, 1948, in the present day Summit, Argo, Illinois, which was generally shortened to Summit, and moved with his parents to another Chicago suburban neighborhood. Well, it's called Maywood. At the age of 10, his parents had come from this entire state of Louisiana as a part of the Great Migration of African Americans in the early 20th century out of the South. They both worked at the Argo Starch Company, a cornstarch processor, as a youth. Hampton was gifted both in the classroom and athletically, and hoped to play center field for the New York Yankees. New York Yankees is a baseball team that was based in New York City, borough of the Bronx. Okay, yeah, yeah, he hoped and played center field for the New York Yankees. At the age of 10 years old, he started hosting the weekend breakfasts for other children that was from the neighborhood, cooking the meals, himself in what could be described described as a precursor to the Panthers. Free breakfast program in high school. He led walkouts protesting black students' exclusion from the competition for homecoming queen and calling on officials to hire more black teachers and administrators. Hampton graduated from what's the name? Proviso East High School. This is a building right there. It was in Maywood. It's in Maywood, Illinois. Uh, Proviso wasn't it? Proviso East High School. That was with honors in varsity letters and a Junior Achievement Award in 1966. This is his. This is him. This is Hampton in a yearbook that was in 1966. But in that same year of 1966, Fred Hampton had turned 18 at the time. At that time, he started identifying with the third world socialist struggles, as well as reading communist revolutionaries Che Guevara, Che Guevara, Ernesto Che Guevara, who was a Marxist, was an Argentine Marxist revolutionary physician, author, guerrilla leader, diplomat, politician, and military theorist, who can be a major figure of the Cuban Revolution. Ho Chi Minh, they call him Uncle Ho, and who else was who he was reading? Mao Zedong, who happens to be a Chinese politician, revolutionary, and political theorist, who had founded the PRC in the 1940s and led the country from its establishment until his death in the 1970s. But shortly after, Hampton had urged not only peace, in the Vietnam War, but also North Vietnam's victory. That's right. That's why I said right. North Vietnam's victory. Hampton became active in the National Association of the what's it is NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and assumed leadership of its West Suburban Branches Youth Council in his capacity as an NAACP youth organizer. It's an NAACP. Yeah, that's why we had to read this here. In his capacity as an NAACP youth organizer, he demonstrated leadership abilities from a community of 27,000 when he was able to muster a youth group of 500 members strong. He worked to get more and better recreational facilities established in the neighborhoods and to improve educational resources for Maywood's impoverished black community. In 1968, Hampton was accused of assaulting an ice cream truck driver by stealing $71 worth of ice cream bars and giving them to the children in the street. He was convicted in May of 1969 and served time in prison. In a memoir, a man who goes by the name of Frank B. Wilderson, Franklin Benjamin Wilderson III, who was an American writer, dramatist, filmmaker, and critic, had places this incident in the context of COINTELPRO. The efforts, let me show you what COINTELPRO means. It was a series of covert and illegal projects. That's what it says. What COINTELPRO was about, it was like a series of covert and illegal projects conducted between the 1950s and the 1970s by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation that was aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting American political organizations. They got the COINTELPRO note there, so I don't even know why that note was already been placed onto it. Yeah, in the context of the COINTELPRO efforts to disrupt the Black Panthers of Chicago by the leveling of trumped up charges. In the same year, in 1969, this is why after 1968 it have ended. It's after 1968 have came to a close and ended. Hold on. Focus on fucking phone. Can't even contact people on this piece of shit ass phone. In 1969, this was after 1968 had ended. Hampton, who was now a deputy chairman of the BPP Illinois chapter, conducted a meeting. Yeah, that's why I'll read this over again. In 1969, Hampton himself, who was now deputy chairman of the BPP Illinois chapter, conducted a meeting condemning sexism. After 1969, the party officially considered sexism counter-revolutionary, but in 1970, about 40 to 70% of party members were women. Over the next year, you know damn well I'm not done with this though. Over the next year, Hampton and his friends and associates achieved many successes in Chicago. Perhaps the most important was a non-aggression pact among Chicago's most powerful street gangs. Like, yeah, that's what it was. Among Chicago's most powerful street gangs, emphasizing that racial and ethnic conflict among the gangs would only keep its members, entrenched in poverty. Hampton strove to forge an anti-racist, class-conscious, multiracial alliance among the BPP, the Young Patriots Organization, and the Young Lords. Under the leadership of Jose Chacha Jimenez, leading to the Rainbow Coalition. Hampton met the Young Lords in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood the day after they were in the news for occupying a police community workshop at the Chicago 18th District Police Station. He was arrested twice with, with Jimenez at the Wicker Park Welfare Office, and both were charged with what called to be mob action. That's what it says, mob action. At a peaceful picket of the office. Later, the Rainbow Coalition was joined nationwide by the students of for what's it, SDS, Students for a Democratic Society. It means SDS. The Brown Berets, that means called La Causa. AIM, the American Indian Movement, and the Red Guard Party. That was like an Chinese American youth organization that was formed in early 1969. But in May of 1969, Hampton called a press conference to announce that the coalition had formed. What the coalition groups would do was based on common action. Some of their joint issues were poverty, anti racism, corruption, police brutality, and substandard housing. There was a protest or a demonstration, the groups would attend the event and support each other. Jeffrey Haas, Jeffrey Haas, who was Hampton's lawyer, has praised some of Hampton's politics and his success in unifying the movements. Though Haas later was like critical that Hampton and the Black Panther Party organized in a pyramidal, that's a word, pyramidal, that's a word, pyramidal, and vertical structure, contrasting this with the more horizontal structure of the later Black Lives Matter movement. This the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like it's a decentral it's a, like what that's what it was. It's a decentralized political and social movement that aims to highlight racism, discrimination, and racial inequality, as words, racial inequality experienced by Black people, and to promote anti-racism. That's what the that's what it is. Later, the Black Lives Matter at the time, I think it came from George Soros and all them. They may also have picked, yeah, that's what it says. They may also have picked up on the vulnerability of a hierarchical, what's this? what's this, hierarchical, was it hierarchical? Yeah, that's what it says, hierarchical movement, where you had one leader, which makes the movement very vulnerable if that leader is imprisoned, killed, or otherwise compromised. I think the fact that the Black Lives Matter says we're leaderful, not leaderless, perhaps makes them less vulnerable to this kind of government assault. Hampton rose quickly in the Black Panthers based on his organizing skills, oratorical gifts, and charisma. Once he became the leader of the Chicago chapter, the Windy City chapter, he organized weekly rallies, participated in strikes, worked closely with the Black Panther Party's local People's Clinic, the BPP's, the BPP's local People's Clinic, which that taught the political education classes every morning at 6 a.m. in the morning, and launched a project for the community supervision of the police. Hampton was also instrumental in the BPP's free breakfast program when Bob Brown had left the party with an individual who goes by the name of Kwame Ture, who was a Trinidadian American activist who played a major role in the civil rights movement in the United States and the global pan American movement. The man is from Trinidad. In the FBI fomented SNCC/Panther split, Hampton assumed chairmanship of the Illinois State BPP. This automatically made him a national BPP deputy chairman as the FBI's COINTELPRO began to decimate the nationwide Panther leadership. The nationwide Panther leadership. Yeah, that's what it is. Hampton's prominence, yes, that's what I tell you about Hampton. His prominence in the national hierarchy increased rapidly and dramatically. Eventually, he was in line to be appointed to the party's Central Committee Chief of Staff. He would have achieved this position had he not been killed. Okay, there's the investigation notes from the FBI. Uh, the FBI had believed that Hampton's leadership and talent for communication made him a major threat among Black Panther Party leaders, among not Black Panther Party leaders, among Black Panther leaders that began keeping close tabs on his activities. You viewers know that I'm telling the truth. No, I'm telling the truth, don't you? Yeah. Let me start over. The FBI believed that Hampton's leadership and talent for communication made him a major threat among Black Panther leaders. It began keeping close tabs on his activities. Investigations have shown that the FBI director, who goes by the name of J. Edgar Hoover, who was an American uh, law attorney, who was an American attorney of the Law and Order ticket, and law enforcement administrator, who have served as the fifth and final director of the BOI and the first director of the FBI. He was determined to prevent the formation of the cohesive Black movement in the United States. Hoover believed that the Panthers, Young Patriots, Young Lords, and the similar was I got all butchered up now. Similar radical coalitions that Hampton forged in Chicago were a stepping stone to the rise of a revolution that could cause a radical change in the U.S. government. The FBI opened a file on Hampton in the late 1960s. It tapped Hampton's mother on the phone. I think they were already tapping up some phones. I think they tapped the telephone that belonged to the mother of Fred Hampton. Probably Hampton's mother's phone. Uh, but in February of 1968, why would he just why would he just tap why would he tap Fred Hampton's mother's phone in early 1968? And by May, placed Hampton on the Bureau's what's known as the name agitator index that was known as the FBI indexes or index list as a key militant leader. In late 1968, the Racial Matters Squad of the FBI's Chicago field office recruited William O'Neill, who was a he happens to be an FBI informant in the Windy City, where he had infiltrated the BPP organization. They refer to him as some sort of a catalyst for the police FBI assassination of Fred Hampton, who was the BPP head of the Illinois chapter. God damn, man. William O'Neill was a cold ass piece of work to begin with. Yeah, yeah. They recruited William O'Neill to work with it. Nobody else even know that guy's a rat anyway. Guy's a snitch. He had recently been arrested twice for the interstate car theft and impersonating a federal officer, not just a peace officer, a federal officer, in exchange for having his felony charges dropped and receiving a monthly stipend. O'Neill agreed O'Neill agreed to infiltrate the BPP as a counterintelligence operative. O'Neill joined the party and quickly rose in the organization that becoming the director of chapter security and Hampton's bodyguard. In 1969, the FBI special agent in charge, that means SAC, in San Francisco wrote Huber that the agent's investigation had found that in his city, at least the Panthers were primarily feeding breakfast to children. Huber responded with a memo implying that the agent's career prospects depended on his supplying evidence to support Huber's view that the BPP was a violence prone organization. That's right, a violence prone organization seeking to overthrow the government by revolutionary means. Using the anonymous letters, the FBI sowed distrust and eventually instigated a split between the Panthers and the Blackstone Rangers. There's the Blackstone Rangers. That was that used to be the almighty Black Keystone Nation that was founded in the Windy City. O'Neill instigated an armed clash between them on April 2nd. On April 2nd, 1969, the Panthers became effectively isolated from their power base in the Chicago ghetto. So the FBI worked to undermine it. What it says the FBI worked to undermine its ties with the other radical organizations. O'Neill was instructed, O'Neill was instructed to create a rift between the party and the students for a democratic society, whose Chicago headquarters was near that of the Panthers. The FBI released a batch of the racist cartoons in the Panthers' name, aimed at alienating white activists. Yeah, that's what's aiming. It's aimed at alienating white activists. It also launched a disinformation program to forestall the formation of the Rainbow Coalition. But the BPP, that means the Black Panther Party, did make an alliance with the Young Patriots and the Young Lords in repeated directives. Hoover demanded that the COINTELPRO personnel investigate the Rainbow Coalition. It means destroy what the Black Panther Party stands for and eradicate its Serve the People programs. That's what it says. Eradicate its Serve the People programs. The documents were secured by the Senate investigation. I got it wrong. The documents were secured by the Senate investigators in the early 1970s, revealed that the FBI actively encouraged violence between the Panthers and other radical groups. This provoked multiple murders in cities throughout the country. On July 16, 1969, that was around the summer, an armed confrontation between the party members and the Chicago Police Department resulted in one Black Panther Party member being mortally wounded and six others arrested on some serious charges. In early October, Hampton and his girlfriend, who was had to be Deborah Johnson, who calls herself Akua Najeri, that's her. She was pregnant, who was pregnant with their child, who happened to be who had to be Fred Hampton Jr., he's all grown up now. So see, Fred Hampton Jr. is already grown up now. I got the names mixed up though. It was his son Fred Hampton. It was Fred Hampton Sr. I mistook him for his son. This is Fred Hampton Jr. This is Frederick Allen Hampton Jr., who is all grown up now. He's a political activist based in Chicago. He is the president and the chairman of the Prisoners of Conscience Committee and the Black Panther Party Cubs. You know what I'm saying? Well, he followed the footsteps of his daddy. Fred Jr., you looks like you follow the footsteps of your now deceased father. Good luck running that organization and being the boss of the PCC. Good luck. In early October, Hampton and his girlfriend Deborah Johnson, who was now known as Akua Najeri, who was pregnant with their child Fred Hampton Jr., rented a four and a half room apartment at 2337 West Monroe Street to be closer to BPP headquarters. O'Neill reported to his superiors that much of the Panthers' provocative arms stockpile was stored there. He drew them a map of the apartment. In early November, Hampton traveled to California on a speaking engagement with the UCLA Law Students Association. He met with the remaining BPP national hierarchy, who appointed him to the party's central committee. He was soon to take the position of chief of staff and major spokesman. Oh, there's the assassination thing. On the night of November 13th, that's right there it is. Let me read this. On the night of November 13th, 19, oh, it's word. November 9th, no, what's that night? On the night of November 13th, 1969, I think it's November 13th, 1969. I probably got it right. While Hampton was in California, Chicago police officers like John J. Gilhooly and Frank G. Rappaport were also killed. They were killed in a gun battle with the Panthers. One died the next day. A total of 9 police officers were shot. Spurgeon Winter Jr., a 19-year-old Panther, was killed by police. Another Panther who goes by the name of Lawrence S. Bell was charged with murder. In an unsigned editorial headlined "No Quarter for Wild Beasts," the Chicago Tribune, American daily newspaper, urging that Chicago police officers approaching suspected Panthers should be ordered to be ready to shoot. As a part of the COINTELPRO operation, I'm almost there. The FBI was determined to prevent any improvement in the effectiveness of the BPP leadership. The FBI orchestrated an armed raid with the Chicago police and Cook County's state attorney, well, Cook County state's attorney, on Hampton's Chicago apartment. They have obtained detailed information about the apartment, including a layout of furniture from O'Neill, an augmented 14-man team of the SAO, that means the State Special Prosecutions Unit. It was organized for a pre-dawn raid. They were armed with a search warrant for the illegal weapons. On the evening of December 3rd, Hampton taught a political education course at a local church which was attended by the most Panther members. Afterward, as was typical as it seemed, he was accompanied to his Monroe Street apartment by Johnson and several Panthers like Blair Anderson, James Grady, Ronald Doc Satchel, Harold Bell, Verlina Brewer, Louis Truock, Brenda Harris, and Mark Clark. O'Neill was already there, having prepared a late dinner, which the group ate around midnight. O'Neill had slipped what's that? What's it? The seco barbital into a drink that Hampton consumed during the dinner to sedate Hampton so he would not awaken during the subsequent raid. O'Neill left after dinner. After 1:30 a.m. in the morning, December 4th, Hampton fell asleep mid-sentence while talking to his mother on the telephone. Although Hampton was not known to take drugs, he's not known to take those drugs. Cook County chemist Eleanor Berman later reported that she had run 2 tests. She had run like 2 tests, each showing the evidence of barbiturates in Hampton's blood. An FBI chemist failed to find similar traces, but Berman stood by her findings. There's a raid. There's a fucking raid. The office of Cook County's, oh, what's it? The office of Cook County State's Attorney Edward Hanrahan, Edward Vincent, Edward Vincent Hanrahan, what's the name? Edward Vincent Hanrahan, who was an American attorney and politician. Yeah, who has served as the state attorney of Cook County from the 60s to the 70s. He had organized the raid by using the officers attached to his office. Hampton had recently strongly criticized Hanrahan by saying that Hanrahan's talk about a war on gangs was really rhetoric used to enable him to carry out a war on black youth. At 4 a.m. in the morning, the heavily armed police team, the heavily armed police team arrived at the site divided into two teams, 8 for the front of the building and 6 for the rear. At 4:45 a.m. in the morning, they stormed the apartment. Mark Clark, who was 22 years old at the time, sitting in the front room of the apartment with a loaded shotgun in his lap, was on security duty. The police shot him in the chest, killing him instantly. An alternative account said that Clark answered the door and police immediately shot him. Either way, Clark's gun discharged. It just jammed. Once into the ceiling, the single round was fired when he suffered what's it says, a reflexive death convulsion after being shot. That's like a reflex. This was the only shot fired by the Panthers. Fred Hampton, drugged by barbiturates. He was sleeping on a mattress in the bedroom with his baby mama, Deborah Johnson, was 18 years old. He was like was this young at she was this young at the time, who was like 8.5 months pregnant with their child Fred Jr. Police officers had removed her from the room while Hampton laid unconscious in bed. Then the raiding team fired at the head of the south bedroom. Hampton was wounded in the shoulder by the shooting. According to the National Archives and Records Administration, upon that discovery, an officer shot him twice in his head and killed him. A fellow Black Panther, Harold Bell, said this. Uh, what he said? Did he? What did the fellow Black Panther, Harold Bell, said that he heard the following exchange? These all quotes. It's all quote unquotes. That's Fred Hampton. Is he dead? Bring him out. He's barely alive. He'll make it. The injured Panthers said that they heard two shots. Two shots. According to Hampton supporters, the shots were fired point blank at Hampton's head. According to Johnson, who was uh who was Hampton's baby mama, an officer then said, "He's good and dead now." That's what the officer said. With a stone face, like he's good and dead now. Hampton's body was dragged into the bedroom doorway, left in a pool of blood. The officers have directed their gunfire at the remaining Panthers who had been sleeping in the north bedroom. This included Ronald Doc Satchel, Blair Anderson, Berlina Brewer, and Brenda Harris. Brewer, Satchel, Anderson, and Harris were seriously wounded uh, during the uh, during the attack. Then beaten and dragged into the street. They were arrested on charges of aggravated assault and attempted murder of the officers. Yeah, these Panthers were like uncertified cop killers. They were each held on $100,000 in bail. In the early 1990s, Jose Jimenez, who's also known as Cha Cha, the founder of the Young Lords, a Puerto Rican separatist street gang who had developed the close ties to Hampton and the Chicago Black Panther Party. During the late 1960s, interviewed Johnson about the raid. She said, "I believe Fred Hampton was drugged. The reason why is when he woke up, when the person that goes by the name Chulak said that Chairman, he was shaking Fred's arm. You know, Fred's arm was folded across the head of the bed, and Fred, he just raised his head up real slow. It was like watching a slow motion. He raised his eyes were open. His eyes were open, that's what she said. He raised his head up real slow, you know, with his eyes toward the entranceway, toward the bedroom, and laid his head back down. That was the only movement he made. The seven Panthers who had survived the raid were indicted by a grand jury on charges of attempted murder, armed violence, and other weapons charges. These charges were subsequently dropped. During the trial, the Chicago Police Department claimed that the Panthers were the first to fire shots, but a later investigation found that the Chicago police fired between 90 and was it what the Chicago police had did? They fired between 90 and 99 shots, while the only Panthers shot that was from a shotgun that Mark Clark had dropped. It was Clark's dropped. It was Clark's dropped shotgun. After the raid, the apartment was left unguarded. The Panthers sent some members to investigate, accompanied by a videographer by the name of Michael Gray. Harold Michael Gray, who was an American writer, screenwriter, cinematographer, film producer, and director, and stills photographer who goes by the name of Norris McNamara, to document the scene. The footage was later released as part of the 1971 documentary called The Murder of Fred Hampton. Who criticized this documentary? Roger Ebert. After a break-in at an FBI office in Pennsylvania, that's what it says. After a break-in at an FBI office in Pennsylvania, the assistance of the COINTELPRO and a legal counterintelligence program was revealed, and reported what this program revealed that many activists and others began to suspect that the police raid was in what's to say the police raid and Hampton's killing were so conducted. Under this program, one of the documents were released. After the break-in was a floor plan of Hampton's apartment. Another document outlined a deal that the FBI had brokered with the U.S. Deputy Attorney General, who goes by the name of Richard Kleindienst. What's his name? Richard Gordon Kleindienst. Richard, where was this? Richard Gordon Kleindienst. Kleindienst, I think. Can't understand that his last name correctly. I can't even understand his last name in that correct way. What's his name? Why he got a weird name? Who names a man Richard or the last name Kleindienst? They brokered with U.S. Deputy Attorney General Richard Kleindienst to conceal the FBI's role in Hampton's death and the existence of the COINTELPRO. This aftermath. Oh boy, this is more longer than me to read this thing. At a press conference the next day, the police announced that the arrest team had been attacked by the violent and extremely vicious Panthers and defended themselves accordingly. In a second press conference on December 8th, the police leadership praised the assault team for their remarkable restraint, bravery, and professional discipline in not killing all the Panthers present. Photographic evidence was presented by was presented of bullet holes, bullet holes allegedly made by the shots fired by the Panthers. But the reporters soon challenged this claim. They have challenged this claim real quick, real soon. An internal investigation was so undertaken, and the police had claimed that their colleagues on the assault team were exonerated of any wrongdoing, concluding that they used lawful means to overcome the assault. 5,000 people attended Hampton's funeral. Yeah, there's 5,000 people. They attended Hampton's funeral, and he was eulogized by black leaders, including the likes of Jesse Louis Jackson, Ralph David Abernathy Sr. Yes, Ralph David Abernathy Sr. Uh, Martin Luther King Jr., who was later killed on April 4th, 1968, um, in um, in Tennessee. It was at the Lorraine Hotel. What does it say? I got all fucked up. I got this shit all fucked up. He was eulogized. Yeah, Hampton was eulogized by black leaders including Jesse Jackson, Ralph Abernathy, Martin Luther King Jr.'s successor as head of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. That's the SCLC. In his eulogy, Jackson said that when Fred was shot in Chicago, black people in particular and decent people in general bled everywhere. On December 6th, the members of the Weather Underground destroyed numerous police vehicles in retaliatory bombing spree in at what 3600 North Halsted Street. Was it 3600 North Halsted Street in Chicago? The police have called their raid on Hampton's apartment a shootout. The Black Panthers called it a shoot-in because so many shots were fired by police. On December 11th and 12th, the competing daily newspapers like the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times published the vivid accounts of the events, but they have drew the different conclusions. The different conclusions. The Tribune has long been considered the politically conservative newspaper, and the Sun-Times, the liberal paper. On December 11th, the Tribune published a page 1 article titled is called Exclusive. It's called Exclusive. Hand by hand, police tell Panther story. It says police tell Panther story. The article included photographs supplied by Henry Hand's office that depicted the bullet holes in a thin white curtain and a door jamb as evidence that the Panthers fired multiple bullets at the police. Jack Challam, who was the editor of the Wright College News, the student newspaper at Wright Junior College. This is the building right there. It was in Chicago. had visited the apartment on December 6th. When it was still unsecured, he took numerous photographs of the crime scenes. A member of the Black Panthers was allowing visitors to tour the apartment. Chelum's Chelum's photographs did not show the bullet holes reported by the Tribune. I'm still trying to get to the hour. Almost getting close to the hour. Hold on. Oh shit. Okay. What's that go to? That evening, the Sun Times published a page one article with the headline, "Those bullet holes aren't." According to the article, the alleged bullet holes that supposedly the result of the Panthers shooting in the direction of the police were nail heads. 4 weeks, 4 weeks after, as it says here, 4 weeks after witnessing Hampton's death at the hands of the police, Johnson gave birth to their son, Fred Hampton Jr. Damn, looks like Fred Jr. is indeed like ended up without a father. He ends up without a father. I felt bad for Fred Hampton Jr. Fred Sr. died, so 1969. So civil rights activists like Roy Wilkins and Ramsey Clark styled the Commission of Inquiry into the Black Panthers and the police, alleged that the Chicago police had killed Hampton without any sort of justification or some provocation and had violated the Panthers' constitutional rights against reasonable search and seizure. That's where the what does it say? Unreasonable search and seizure. The commission further alleged that the Chicago Police Department had imposed a summary punishment on the Panthers. A federal jury did not return any indictment against any of the individuals that were involved. With the planning or the execution of the raid, including the officers involved in the killing of Hampton, O'Neill, who had given the FBI the floor plan of the apartment and drugged Hampton, later admitted his involvement in setting up the raid. Yeah, he committed suicide on January the 15th, 1990. Okay, that man, I think, damn, William O'Neill. He probably committed suicide and killed himself. But we're looking at the inquest now. Shortly after the raid, Cook County Coroner Andrew Toman began forming a special six-member coroner's jury to hold an inquest into the deaths of Hampton and Clark. On December the 23rd, Toman announced that to four additions to the jury that who included the two African American men, the physician who goes by the name of Theodore Lawless. Theodore Lawless, they call him TK, and an attorney who goes by the name of Julian B. Wilkins, who was who's J. Ernest Wilkins's son. Was like that's what this Julian B. Wilkins. He's an attorney. He's related to J. Ernest Wilkins, Jesse Ernest Wilkins Sr. That's his son Julian. Uh, He said that the four were selected. Yeah, he said that the four were selected from a group of candidates submitted to his office by the groups and the individuals that were representing both Chicago's black and white communities. Yeah, yeah, the black and white communities of Chicago. The civil rights leaders and the spokesmen for the black community were reportedly disappointed with the selection. An official with the CUL, the Chicago Urban League, have said, yeah, the Chicago Urban League. One of the officials has started saying this, that one of those guys has said that I would have had more confidence in the jury if one of them had been a black man who has a rapport, who has a rapport with the young and the grassroots in the community. Yep, Gus Savage. I can find out what his name is. Augustus Savage. That's his name. Augustus Savage. They call him Gus. He said that such a man to whom the community could relate need not be black. The jury eventually included a third black man who had been a member of the first coroner's jury sworn in on December 4th. The Blue Ribbon panel convened in the inquest of January 6, 1970, and was on what? January the 21st. They ruled the deaths of Hampton and Clark. Yeah, they ruled the deaths of Hampton and Clark to be justifiable homicides. The jury, they have qualified their verdict on Hampton's untimely death as based solely and exclusively on the evidence presented to this inquisition. Police and expert witnesses have provided the only testimony during the inquest. A jury foreman who goes by the name of James T. Hicks, has stated that they could not consider the charges made by some surviving Black Panthers, you know what I mean, the members who had been in the apartment. They had told reporters that the police had entered the apartment shooting. The survivors were reported to have refused to testify during the inquest because they faced criminal charges of attempted murder and aggravated assault during the raid. Attorneys for the families of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark did not introduce any witnesses during the proceedings, but called the inquest a well rehearsed theatrical performance designed to vindicate the police officers. Hanrahan has said that the verdict was recognition of the truthfulness of our police officers' account. That's what it says. Of the truthfulness of our police officers' account of the events. There's more of this going on. Released on May 15, 1970, the reports of a federal grand jury criticized the actions of the police, the surviving Black Panthers, the members, and the Chicago news media. The grand jury called the police department's raid ill-conceived and said many errors were committed. During the post-raid investigation, I'm still getting to it. Hold on to your seatbelts. I'm getting into it. The grand jury, yeah, that's what it says. let me see. Let me go. Let me get back to it. The grand jury called the police department's raid ill-conceived and said many errors were committed during the post-raid investigation and reconstruction of the events. It said that the surviving Black Panthers' refusal to cooperate hampered the investigation, and that the press improperly and grossly exaggerated stories. Oh, the civil rights lawsuit in the 1970s. I know why. I know why. I know why. In 1970, the survivors and relatives of Hampton and Clark filed a civil suit stating that the civil rights of the Black Panther members were violated by the joint police/FBI raid and seeking $47.7 million in damages. 28 defendants 28 defendants were named, including Henry Hand, as well as the city of Chicago, Cook County, and the federal governments. It took years for the case to get to trial, which had lasted 18 months. It was reported to have been the longest federal trial up to that time. After its conclusion in 1977, a judge who goes by the name of Joseph Samuel Perry of the United States District Court of the Northern District of Illinois has dismissed the suit against 21 of the defendants before the jury deliberations. After the jurors were so deadlocked, deadlocked on the verdict. Perry had dismissed the suit against the remaining defendants. The plaintiffs had appealed in 1979. The United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit in Chicago have found that the government had withheld relevant documents, thereby obstructing the judicial process, reinstating the case against the 24 of the defendants. The 24 of the defendants. The Court of Appeals have ordered a new trial. The Supreme Court of the United States heard an appeal by the defendants, but voted 5-3 in 1980 to remand the case to the district court for a brand new trial. In 1982, the city of Chicago, Cook County, and the federal government had agreed to a settlement in which each would have paid $616,333, equivalent to $2.1 million per payee in like a year, in like over a year, to a group of 9 plaintiffs, including the mothers of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. The $1.85 million settlement, $1.85 million settlement that was an equivalent to $6.3 million in like over a year, was so believed to be the largest ever in a civil rights case. This guy had to be an attorney representing those that was in the lawsuit. G. Flint Taylor, who was an American human rights and civil rights attorney. This guy could be one of the attorneys representing the plaintiffs that he has said this. The settlement is an admission of the conspiracy that existed between the FBI and Hanrahan's men to murder Fred Hampton, Assistant U.S. Attorney, Assistant United States Attorney uh, Robert Gruenberg has said that the settlement was intended to avoid another costly trial and was not an admission of guilt or responsibility by any of the defendants. There's a controversy. There's a controversy out there. There's some controversies that started to get pushed in 10 days after Hampton was slain. A man named Robert Rush, I forgot his name. I gotta get this name right. Bobby Lee Rush, who was an American politician, activist, and pastor, who has served for the U.S. Representative for Illinois' first congregational, not congregational, first congressional district for like 3 decades. But he already had ended his thing in like what over 2 years ago, and the then deputy minister of defense for the Illinois Black Panther Party, uh, the raiding party and execution squad. Why would he just call the raiding party an execution squad then? An execution squad. As is typical in the settlements, the three government defendants did not acknowledge the claims of responsibility for the plaintiff's allegations. Michael Newton, this man right here, he was an American author and journalist. He had published about 357 books throughout his career. Is among the writers who had concluded that Hampton was assassinated. In his 2016 book, that's what it says. What it says? Unsolved Civil Rights Murder Cases from 1934 to 1970. Newton writes that Hampton was murdered in his sleep by Chicago police with the FBI collusion. This view is also presented in Jacoby Williams's book. And it's called "From the Bullet to the Ballot." The final, what's it? Not the final chapter. The Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party and racial coalition politics in Chicago. Now I gotta go delve right into the personal life of the late Frederick Allen Hampton. Hampton was very close with Chicago Black Catholic priest who goes by the name of George Clements. I also named George Harold Clements. You know what I'm saying? Who has served as his mentor and as a chaplain for the local Panther chapter. Hampton and the Panthers also used Clements's parish, Holy Angels Catholic Church in Chicago, which was now known as the parish of Our Lady of Africa, as a refuge in times of particular surveillance or pursuit from the police. They also provided security for several of Clemens's Black Unity Masses. Part of his revolutionary activities during the Black Catholic movement, Clemens has spoke at the funeral of Frederick Allen Hampton, and also said a requiem mass for him at Holy Angels. I gotta go delve into the legacy. It was so goddamn big. Shit. Legal and political effects. According to a late 2000s Chicago Tribune report, the raid ended the promising political career of Cook County State's Attorney Edward V. Hanrahan. I gotta go choose this. Yeah, that's him. Who was indicted but cleared with 13 other law enforcement agents on the charges of obstructing justice. A Republican who goes by the name of Bernard Carey, Clarence Bernard Carey Jr., who happens to be a Republican, had defeated him in the next election in part because of the support of the outraged black voters. The families of Hampton and Clark have filed a $47.7 million civil suit against the city, state, and the federal governments. The case went to trial before a federal judge, uh, Joseph Samuel Perry. Again, after more than 18 months of testimony and at the close of the plaintiff's case, Perry dismissed the case. Plaintiffs have appealed, and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit reversed it, ordering the case to be retried. More than a decade after the case had been filed, the suit was finally settled for $1.85 million. The two families each shared in the settlement. Jeffrey Haas and with his law partners like G. Flint Taylor and Dennis Cunningham, and another attorney who goes by the name of James D. Montgomery, were the attorneys that were for the plaintiffs in the federal suit of Hampton versus Hanrahan. Conducted additional research and wrote a book about these events. It was published in 2009. He said that Chicago was worse off without Hampton. Of course, there's also the legacy that without a young leader, I think the west side of Chicago's degenerated a lot into drugs. And without leaders like Fred Hampton, I think the gangs and the drugs became much more prevalent on the west side. He was an alternative to that. He talked about serving the community, talked about breakfast programs, educating the people, community control of the police. So I think that that's unfortunately another legacy of Fred's murder. In 1990, the Chicago City Council unit was the council. In 1990, the Chicago City Council had unanimously unanimously passed a resolution introduced by a then alderman who goes by the name also on red. That page does not exist. Her name was yeah. My mom said, "Can you come put that bread on the microwave thing?" Oh, something wrong with that microwave again? Yeah, it's making that noise. They've been, man, they've been supposed to fix that a long time ago. Whatever you want, man. Your uncle gotta go. Your uncle gotta go. Finish up this story on Fred Hampton. Ugh. Okay, in 1990, the Chicago City Council unanimously passed a resolution introduced by a then Alderman Madeline Haycock, commemorating December 4th, 2004 as Fred Hampton Day in Chicago. The resolution read in part: Fred Hampton, who was only 21 years old, made his mark in Chicago history, not so much not so much by his death, as by the heroic efforts of his life, and by his goals of empowering the most oppressed sector of Chicago's black community, bringing people into political life through participation in their own freedom fighting organization. We're going to the monuments in the streets. A public pool was named in his honor in his hometown of Maywood, Illinois. On September 7, 2007, a bust of Hampton by sculptor Preston Jackson was erected outside the Fred Hampton Family Aquatic Center in Maywood. In March of 2006, supporters of Hampton's charity work supporters of Hampton's charity work proposed the naming of a Chicago street in his honor. In his honor, Chicago's chapter of the Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP, opposed this effort. On April 19th, 2022, the village board of Maywood designated Hampton's childhood home as a historical landmark. On what would have been Hampton's 77th birthday, that could be on August 30th. That just passed. It's already passed already. Uh, August 30th of this year. Once it says August 30th of this year, okay. A Chairman Fred Hampton Way Street sign was unveiled. That's what it says. A Chairman Fred Hampton Way Street sign was so unveiled. It was unveiled on the block that was near 2337 West Monroe Street in Chicago. We got the Weather Underground reaction right here. I got fun with the fish, this whole shit. I got fish all this, man. 2 days after the killings of Hampton and Clark, on December 6, 1969, members of the Weathermen destroyed numerous police vehicles in retaliatory bombing spree on 3600 North Houston Street in Chicago. After that, the group became more radical. On May 21st, 1970, the group issued a declaration of what the group is. The group issued a declaration of war against the U.S. government and for the first time used its new name, the Weather Underground Organization. That's what's named the WUO, the Weather Underground Organization. They have adopted fake identities and decided and it is they have decided to pursue covert activities only. These initially included preparations to bomb a United States military non-commissioned officers dance at Fort Dix, New Jersey. In what this man Brian Flanagan, who was an ex-militant, an activist, who had to be the member of the radical left organizations of the SDS. He was with the SDS. So he had later said that was like intended to be the most horrific hit in the United States it hit the United States government had ever suffered in its history, on its history. This this is what came from Bernardine Dorn. This is from Bernardine Dorn. Wasn't it? Wasn't it? Was it Bernardine Dorn? Dorn. Dorn. She said that we known that our job is to lead white kids into armed revolution. Kids know the lines are drawn. Revolution is touching all of our lives. Tens of thousands have learned that protests and marches don't do it. Revolutionary violence is the only way. You got media and popular culture here. We got this one. A 27-minute documentary, Death of a Black Panther, the Fred Hampton story, was used as evidence. It was used as evidence in a civil suit. The 2002 documentary, The Weather Underground, shows in detail how that group was so deeply influenced by Hampton and his death, as well as showing that Hampton kept his distance from them for being what he called adventuristic, masochistic, and custoristic. What's the word? Custoristic. Much of the first half of the Eyes on the Prize. It was America's civil rights movement. It was a TV series. They got episode 12. Episode 12 is called "A Nation of Law," chronicles Hampton's leadership in extrajudicial killing. The events were the events on of his was it the events of his rise of was it the events of his rise to prominence, Hoover's targeting of him, and Hampton's subsequent death are also recounted with the footage in the 2015 documentary. The 2015 documentary is called "The Black Panthers: Vanguard of the Revolution." The Murder of Fred Hampton is a documentary shot from within the movement. Released in 1971, it has no narration, relying solely on the footage shot from within the Black Panther organization and portraying Hampton and his colleagues on their own terms. On their own terms. In the 1999 miniseries, TV miniseries, it's a TV miniseries, that's what it's called, the 60s. Hampton appears serving free breakfast with the BPP. David Allen Greer, who was a television legend, was a television legend, you know what I mean, known for his roles and things like that, plays as Fred Hampton. The Trial of Chicago 7. The trial of this is called this one. The trial of the Chicago 7 features a man named Kelvin Harrison Jr. That's what his name is, Kelvin Harrison Jr., who was an American actor, as Fred Hampton, in which he advises the guy who started the Black Panthers with the late Huey Newton, Bobby Seale. That's Bobby Seale. He co-founded the Panthers with the late Huey P. Newton. Why would he just, in which he advises Bobby Seale, who had started the Panthers with the late Huey Newton, as as was this as he was what, denied counsel with the what is his name, the Chicago 7. That's named the Chicago 7. which was known as the Chicago Eight or the Conspiracy Eight or Conspiracy Seven. Judas and the Black Messiah is a 2021 film about O'Neill's betrayal of Hampton. It was about O'Neill's betrayal of Hampton. Nobody's even know that William O'Neill is a rat. The film stars like the guy like Daniel Kaluuya. That's Daniel Kaluuya. I think it was him. I think he was in this movie called I think he was in these films. I don't even know why. He played as Hampton, and it was directed by Shaka King, who was an American film director and screenwriter and film producer. That was for those biopics. It kind of premiered at the Sundance. It's the Sundance film. Was it premiered? It premiered at the SFF, the Sundance Film Festival, on February the 1st, 2021. For his performance, Kaluuya won the Academy Award for the Best Supporting Actor. That's for Best Supporting Actor. In the literature they have, Jeffrey Haas wrote an account of Hampton's death and assassination of Fred Hampton, how the FBI and the police and the Chicago police murdered a Black Panther. That's out. Stephen King refers to Hampton in the novel of November 22nd, 1963, in which a character discusses the ripple effect of traveling back in time to prevent the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He postulates he postulates that other events would follow that could have prevented Hampton's assassination as well. All this has been referenced in the song. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. In music. In his song Murder Murder to Excellence, it's like a song that's already been was by American rapper and entrepreneur Sean Carter, who had to be Jay-Z, referred to being born on the same day Hampton died. Hampton's son criticized Jay-Z for doing so. Yeah, Fred Hampton Jr. He does not like Jay-Z for anything that he was doing, dude. He criticized that man for doing so. So there's some beef going on between Fred Hampton Jr. and Sean Carter. Yeah, Fred Hampton Jr. does not like what Jay Z is doing, man. By so Fred Hampton Jr. Criticized Jay Z for doing so, but by saying that his father did not die. What's it say? Like his father did not die, but was assassinated. There's more of this shit here for me to end this live show here. I gotta do a little more. I gotta do a little more than that before I'm gonna have to end this live show. Hold on. American rock band Rage Against the Machine have referenced Hampton in its 1996 song. It was called Down Rodeo. It's called Down Rodeo, by saying that they ain't gonna send us camping like they did my man Fred why they saying a song like why are they saying this in a song? Why are they referencing him in a song? Why are they referencing Hampton and Fred Hampton in a song? Like they ain't gonna send us camping like they did my man Fred Hampton. Rapper Kendrick Lamar. He started referring uh, to Hampton in his song. It's called High Power. It's with High Power. HIIPOWER. High Power. Which also contains references to black civil rights activists like like these people that are no longer with us. Like civil rights legend Martin Luther King Jr., like civil rights legend Martin Luther King Jr., uh, Malcolm X, and Huey Percy Newton. Artists like Saved and it's Seith and Kiko King have referenced Hampton in their 2020 song is called Ghost of Fred Hampton. Michael Render, aka Michael Santiago Render, aka Killer Mike, is referencing Hampton's murder in a song called Don't Die on his 2012 album. His 2012 album is called RAP Music. They got lists of homicides in Illinois. You got lists of homicides in Illinois. You got a list of assassinated human rights activists. I'm going to be working on Huey Newton right after I'm done with this video. All right, I'm gonna do another video. Uh, and it's based on Huey. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna do another live show that I have to do. And it's based on Huey Percy Newton. We'll finish this. We'll finish this live show. I think it was like an hour, like an hour and 40 minutes. I probably done, I probably done hit a home run with this, man. I'm gonna finish this. And I'm gonna do a next video based on Huey Newton. I'm gonna finish this video and I'm gonna do a video based on Newton. I'm gonna get out of this video and then I'm gonna work on the Huey Newton live stream. See y'all in another video.